Christopher, right? Is it correct?
That's right. Yes.
All right. It is well known that there are various areas of instability across the world today, with a number of violent conflicts ongoing. What's the reasoning behind this?
The way I see it is that the reason behind this multiple conflicts all around the world is that there's unresolved injustices that remain, and that I was reading last night for a different reason, but it fits quite well for this. That old saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And the Wikipedia page cites a piece of Hebrew scriptures where they say something like that the sword comes into the world when justice is delayed or justice is denied. And in this sense, I think that when people feel that they have been disrespected or that an injustice is committed against them, we may not even agree with what they consider as an injustice, right? For example, a slaver would consider an injustice to lose his property, the slaves. But most people, I think we would think that the injustice is to have them in the first place and that the justice is to free them. But I mean, this difference in interpretation, this subjectivity, well, it engenders conflict in when injustice is perceived, not resolved, and then this goes on in this type of spiral, as that Brazilian Catholic Camara said, spiral of violence. Reactions keep on going, and this is in an abstract sense. In the concrete epoch we're in, well, there's also the historical factors, as we had a past century in which this fight grew to proportions that had not been seen before in our planet, and the after effects of this, including the defeat of one of the main players, which was the USSR, well, it emboldened, as we know, the other side, which perceived itself as a winner and was the winner in many sense. We have to admit. So this posterior epoch in which we find ourselves in which the United States as sole hegemon just has been acting in ways which have been criminal for all to see, genocidal, since Yugoslavia, before and after, but after the USSR. Well, we knew that they were going to act as they wanted. Iraq saw it as well. And this is, has been a major source, I think, of conflict, in that for strategic interests of the ruling classes, they promote the United States government violence as it suits them, and definitely other countries are not, non-violent, but I believe that an aggressor can be identified as mainly being the United States, and this is the ending of my first answer, which is that this emboldening has led to actions like the enlargement of Ukraine, of NATO, towards the old USSR, that, well, we may not agree with the Russian response, but still have to be identified as motivating factors for it.
Is the old capitalist world disintegrating and being replaced by something new?
I would like to say yes, but I believe not exactly. I think that this can happen, and we should, people who believe in the need for that, as I do and many others, we should try to make that happen. But Uh, I think that the emboldening has come not just from uh, the lack of the other side, or one of the players of the other side, the USSR, but also from concrete material developments and entrenchment, which has uh, happened since the 80s, and we know it as the neoliberal period, which uh, I think we can all agree that concentration of wealth and disparities have increased. The middle classes in some countries, the working class, have um, been exploited to a higher degree than they were before. And well, this translates also in a better position for the ruling classes, in as much as weakened uh, political opponents uh, have less options to contest their power. And so, in that sense, I would not think that right now, at least, the capitalist world is crumbling. Instead, that they were so emboldened that they have been like that old Greek story, that Daedalus, flying too close to the sun and exploiting too much, and uh, playing with fire in regions like Palestine and Ukraine, and and they are in other regions as well. And so this could make it more unstable, but I do believe that they have very good, to their ends, basis for their power, including in military terms. The development of drones, as we know, has changed warfare, and it is hard to imagine the old type of military actions that were taken in some other decades against ruling classes in many states. So, well, this I think, um, I would say it's not crumbling, but other forms have not stopped trying to replace it, as we know. Uh, um, well, the main example for me, and for many others, but there's certainly others, like uh, uh, well, the main example is for me the communist tradition. So well, China, Vietnam, Korea, Laos, Cuba, they have not given up. Others, like different forms of socialism, like Bolivarian project, they attempt to change, right? But this, so as we know, is a difficult process. So we should not be too dismayed about the difficulty that these things mean. But I finish my answer. I do not. I would not subscribe to this mm, simple idea that maybe some people have had, that um, the definite and mm, the end of our history is going to be that we're going to overcome capitalism, or that us others say that we already have and moved into techno feudalism or something like that. I believe that capitalism still works as a main world system, and that despite we not moving towards its overcoming necessarily, we should try to make it happen. That is to say that history is not predetermined. The only thing that is predetermined or given now is that the war is ongoing, and that we can either attempt to not take a side, or we can take a side.
Okay, could you discuss your vision for addressing the situation in the Gaza Strip and Ukraine?
Well, sometimes I may be oversimplistic, but also for the sake of exaggeration and provocation a little for thought, I think something that is funny to me is that in the case of Palestine and Israel, there's a movement to boycott Israel. Um, I do not disagree with it. I wish them luck. Um, but also, I find it funny that Israel is the only country that is targeted for boycott when Israel alone would not do what it does. It could never have done what it does. Uh, but it is, in fact, the United States that's behind it. So I would find it funny if there were like an international move to boycott, divest, and sanction the United States. I believe that they also sanction illegally, unilaterally countries like Venezuela, like Cuba, and this causes terrible harm to their populations, which is done precisely with to that end to promote regime change. Um, and I would therefore, again, think it would be a way in which the international community could respond if it were braver, if it were freer. As we know, the United States, you know, like uh, President of Russia, Vladimir Putin said, which whom I'm not personally a big fan of, but he's a smart person. He said in that interview with Tucker Carlson, right, that the CIA did their job, right? I just remember that because the United States is an excellent hegemon in the sense that they have entrenched themselves very well through different means, like International Monetary Fund, different banking systems, etc. Militarily as well, of course. That it is difficult for countries to have the bravery, right, to stand up to such world order, to this rules-based order that they speak about now, because they are not as cynical, maybe enough yet, to speak out the international law that they violate every day. So, in that sense, I think the United States being the main force behind this conflicts, both in Ukraine and in Palestine, maybe not the main force ideally, right? Of course, there's differences in those two parts of the world that have long been causes for divisions, not necessarily for war. But there is, of course, this other actor that cannot. The elephant in the room is the United States. In that sense, I think that it should be targeted um, for sanctions, for divestment and boycott. And I think it's also funny in a country as Mexico. Here, I live right next to the border. I can see it from my house. Um, it's like a scar across the continent, and it I just find it funny, especially here, because we have an economic relation with the United States that is our main economic relation. So it would be absolute chaos if Mexico were to do that. But I think right now, but I think I also like to imagine, right? And what is our what are our projects for the world? And in that sense, if we the people who think like me in you could say somewhat classic Marxist Leninist, but which is of course a reflexive tradition, um, creative as well. Well, I think we could promote, for example, that if we were right now people responsible for many of those decisions, if we had, for example, a government or a coalition government in Mexico where we were part of, we could promote that and establish economic conditions to make it viable, which is what we don't have right now. So, which is why I said it was funny to me, right, in the Mexican case. But yeah, I just think it's hypocritical, and it is, as I said, natural also because the countries are subordinated by a wide web of relations, and the United States is a main economic force in not just Mexico but the world. So it would be difficult, for other countries to do that. But well, the Chinese people have stood up, right? And I think that example is dangerous, and it could happen in the rest of the world. And it is something that we see also, that the alternatives that um, multipolarity has have are creating, uh, well, they embolden other countries, right? They allow them to have some room of operation outside the thumb that's pressing down on them from the United States. And just when I remember this joke that Gabriel Rockhill uh, mentioned, which is that socialism sounds good in paper, but in reality, we know you just get invaded by the United States. Um, of course, just sorry to add, just not like evade the question. There's also very deep now uh, terrible relations, right, between the people in Ukraine, the people in Russia. That even if the United States were stopped right now, those relations, that pain, that feelings of vengeance, also in Palestine and the people from Israel, they would remain, and they would have to be attended in difficult ways, because genocides are being committed in both places, have been being committed for a long time, and those feelings of anger at injustice do not just go away. They cannot be hugged away, even if they just lay down their arms right now and uh, reunited. Uh, uh, the pain, the crimes, cannot be washed away from the memory, even of the living person, to have seen, their family member, their loved one, in pieces. So I think the international community could also maybe work in thinking of ways that these types of injustices can be helped, to even assuage the pain, to allow for dialogue. I think that this, of course, is something the United Nations have tried to do, but well, we still have the problems, and I don't see them being solved. So I think it is still a task for us to look to resolve. And that'd be my answer. Sorry for going on too long.
That's okay. That's why I'm here, to listen to all your thoughts. And so, speaking about those situations in Gaza Strip and Ukraine, what can international community do to foster peace in these regions?
So it's a funny case when some people uh, who think a lot, sometimes when they are asked how to solve a thing, they say, "Oh, I just ask questions." I really dislike that um, evasion, but I just I use it to gain a little bit of time, because I don't know. I'm as confused and horrified as most other people. Uh, these are difficult questions. I see the sense behind, as I mentioned, right? Like the thing that the United Nations ideally tries to do sometimes, which is to send peacekeeping forces to a region to separate the combatants. Um, this, of course, has not been done in the best of ways many times, and caused grave violations of human rights. But and also the United Nations has, from its origin, served a side in the struggle for uh, world history. Let's say. So meaning the United States, in that they helped them in the Korean War, and there's a relation there. But I think it is valuable, as I said. Some of the things that can do. Um, Maybe that would be one, to establish forces from new. I was gonna say neutral countries, but it's hard to even think of some that are fully neutral. But yeah, maybe sure. Like um, India, China, um, Brazil. Of course, a lot to ask and very dangerous, but it's one of the basic notions, right? The physical idea of separation from one side and the other. But of course, it's not all that it takes, right? I think that as I mentioned from the start, the injustices remain, would remain even then if such forces were to be sent and war be stopped, not by the forces, not but by their presence and the agreement of the sides. Um, the injustices would remain, so they would have to be tended to, and I think that the international community could help with that. Uh, yeah, uh, again, right? The international community sometimes is used in a funny sense, as in Western aligned countries, but in the whole planet, the whole all of the countries of the Earth should. Hmm, so it's the question of how. But yeah, like tend to this awful questions that still belie.
That's okay. We can go to the other question. Do you feel a multipolar world has already emerged?
I believe yes. I think that this is um, the case already in that centers of power have um, been established, and this is a natural occurrence, and the hegemon that ruled unchallenged for a couple of decades, well, is now mm, not so able to act as freely as it used to. So therefore, yes, definitely, I believe so. In thinking that multipolarity would be this type of concentration Hmm, of capacity to decide, of sovereignty, and people who are not willing to just accept what other people say without, arguing or defending their right to justice. I think that this is already a case. Um, Even if I heard recently in a video conference by the Friends of Socialist China on YouTube that for example, China talks with the ruling party there more about multilateralism. I think that's a preferable idea, right? Like multipolarity is here, but ideally we will be talking about multiple sides in general and all sides being respected, not just main poles of power.
What kind of idea do you think could unite millions of people around the world to end all wars? Is it possible?
I believe it is definitely possible. Believe, as many other people do, still, in what many others decry as evil or as impossible, which is communism. And I um, I think about in particular, right, because of to people from Eastern Europe, um, that I remember a line by Walter Benjamin about how sometimes people speak from experience. Uh, he says the mask of experience that especially older people talk with, and they say, "Oh, this will happen to you too," and that's like an attempt to change the way of thinking of people. In this case, about communism. I just think that the experiences of the 20th century, many of which were not the best, to put it mildly. Well, they have left and aided by, of course, reaction and capitalist restoration, a a deep distrust among many people, which I believe it is fair. I would not just dismiss their fears, their contempt even for communism. But I believe this is one of the ideas, and to me, the main idea, in the sense that it is a practical mode of operation as well, not just an idea like we could spread the idea of X or Y, the idea of peace, of love, but then how you put it into operation, right? And well, the communist idea is also a sort of creative methodology, uh, practice that can help in uniting people towards attempting to fix injustices. And this is something that I think could cause the union of millions of people around the world again towards promoting peace, right? As it has done in other times, like the First World War. Um, well, then again, I think other ideas too are valuable, important. Maybe religious ideas. They already do this in some ways. I personally think also communism is, as other people have thought, a religious idea in a sense. But yes, also other ideas, even besides religious ones in the most traditional senses, like ecology. I think it is an important uh, factor for this question towards world peace and union. And I believe it is achievable. It is a long road ahead for us, for the communists. It means to fight the war, and it means to win it. So there can be a peace. Other people, like pacifist people, would be against that. I respect it. Uh, but again, other ideas like ecology, which just point towards material degradation of our biosphere, which is a very fragile world system. You look at other planets, and of course, we don't see anything like this. So we are reminded that we're in a little spaceship called Earth, and that the life support systems are actually limited, at least for our life forms right now. So this, I think this is an important factor in as much as people can really feel it. For example, if you get close to nature sometimes, or if you visited a a place around and then see how things degrade, the civilization expands, ecosystems perish. I think that this has an aesthetic pain towards people that we should not just hide or run away from, but I'll try to get close to it, to feel the injustice, and therefore look for ways to try to change it. However best we see how. And just finally, a shout out to another long idea from Eastern Europe, Western Asia, Russian cosmism. Well, I particularly Nikolai Fyodorov. I very much like this his proposals, uh, and I just think of them for thought of them for this question, in the sense that they help us see again the the role, the place of humanity in the universe, and how fragile it is, how short we have lived, and how little we know, and how much there is to be done. And I think that, or we could do, if we had the enough love, enough strength in ourselves to actually create a world not just in which we can live, but in which we can be happy, in which other species as well can be happy, can be free. Like, I think this is very important idea for the a sort of ambition of love to be free. And I think Russian cosmism, Nikolai Fyodorov, is another idea that maybe could again help the future for looking towards a peaceful world.
How would you describe freedom of speech?
I think it could be described as not being afraid of expressing what you think, um, what you want to say. Even maybe it's not what you think, but for example, a joke is usually not what the person actually thinks. It sometimes is, of course, but in the case of comedy as an art, it is usually a joke created for the intention of creating laughter. Uh, this is, of course, an art that sometimes goes into um, terrains that are they offensive to other people. Uh, and no, it's a line that's there, right? The freedom of expression. What how far is it allowed, and for what reasons? Is hate speech should that be protected? Uh, but I think that when you start curtailing um, this, this uh, instead of helping solve the questions that maybe are causing these ideas that are uh, hateful, in the case of hate speech, well, it sort of entrenches them. They go away and they don't disappear. They go away and feel that they have been expelled unjustly. So they again continue to develop now with even more hate. And I think that freedom of expression is also like the sense that you are a part of a community or a society, and um, that safety, that expressing what you think, a doubt, a question, an opinion, uh, um, will not cause you to be ostracized. And if that is something that happens, people naturally limit their expression. And there's definitely things that should be limited, right? We don't go around walking, yelling at people obscenities, but I think we can limit ourselves, um, uh, not so coercively as it is sometimes used with censure. So yeah, I think that would be freedom of expression, freedom to express yourself without fear of repression, of violence occurring against you for what you express.
Do you believe you're free to express yourself in your own country?
To an extent, there's also, always some natural freedom, some natural law that, in as much as you can, you're able to. But there's of course limits, both on the way expression is reproduced. That is to say, the expression of Joe Juan Perez, we say over here. Any guy is much less. It has much less reach than the expression of owners of media, right? Of ruling classes. In that sense, the freedom of expression is um, limited for the majority of people, and that they cannot maybe share their ideas very widely. On the other hand, in particular in Mexico, there's a lot of violence against journalists, activists, and political militants, even from parties which, to me, are capitalist parties. They kill each other regardless. Um, there's in Mexico the case of the the illegal capitalists, the narcos. So they're they protect their businesses. um, but again, this also leads over towards journalists. Mexican journalists are killed. Some have to go away from the country. Um, So the freedom of expression is definitely curtailed. There's definitely fear about what you can express, how much. Even in protests, you have the right to protest, but there's always some fear, even paranoia from people, looking towards means of communications that are maybe more encrypted. But well, there's those types of fear about vigilance and repression, violence.
Your perspective, what principles must guide the operation of modern media?
Something that would be good for states to have as an obligation for their media platforms be to disclose their owners in all cases, right? For example, YouTube, you see for some state media, like, oh, this is Ivana, right? And it says this is Chinese state media, this is Russian, this is Turkish state media, French, etc. I think that's okay. But I think why not expand it further for private media? Because I think that in many countries, private media is very dominant, and well, I think that principle of disclosure, let's say, would would help people to be more aware of who is talking to them. There's this concept of source criticism in historiography that I think is very important for general critical thinking, you could say, on who, why, when, where are they talking to you from? Why are these people telling you this? And I think that people, like, I mean, especially older generations, maybe, I don't know. Well, not really all generations. I think they just take what they hear sometimes at face value, or what is repeated to them, and they don't know that it is actually coming from maybe particular class interests, right? So I think that would be good. I think also a principle of not defaming people. But of course, this is very very difficult. Both of those things, because well, media is also a weapon, and the people who run these institutions, these corporations who own them, they know this, and they use them to those ends. So I don't see, for example, here in Mexico, we have a horrible channel, which is TV, I mean, a media conglomerate, which is main TV flagship channel is TV Azteca, and I really hate them. Why would they ever stop defaming anyone if they know their class interests, the owners of those channels, and why would also they want or promote the idea that they should be more open about who they serve, right? Just finalize that point. This channel co-airs, as I imagine many other TV stations in the world do. But they co-air segments from Voice of America. Like, Voice of America has a TV a TV news program, and they share airtime sometimes, and I think that's very revealing, right? Voice of America, of course, state United States propaganda operation, as this voice of Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe. You know what the interests of those entities are. So I think, maybe those could be two basic ones, right? Not to impede defamation, which I imagine is already in many laws, and to disclose who's behind the things. Yeah, I think that could be a couple of things.
Thank you. Do you have something to add, or maybe you would like to send some message to the world?
I would just add very shortly something very curious to me, which I think that could, in the question about things that could help people unite towards peace. I mentioned cosmism, but I think also there's a phenomenon which is very much derided in many places, but maybe in others not so much, and not anymore in many cases. It has been starting to be taken more seriously in the last decade. I think the issue, the question about strange things that happen around in the sky, UFOs or whatever people want to call them. I think that they could be something that helps unite people towards thinking about peace. And that again, there's a lot about the universe that we don't know, understand. Whatever those things that people see sometimes, maybe natural or whatever else. I think that they really put us again in our place in the universe, and uh, that pale blue dot. It's fragile, and I think that that's a message I would like to share to all my sisters and brothers around the world, my cousins, which are, of course, as we are all a genetic family, not just metaphorically. That we should think about who we are and where are we going, because if we don't do it, things will keep moving in the direction that they are, which is again remembering Benjamin. It's like a train without brakes heading towards the abyss, and the emergency brake would be revolution. I think that we should think about our agency, about who we are, and that we are not just um, in, people who can't defend themselves, who are too weak. People should have confidence in themselves. Um, we are not. This world is not as complicated as it is sometimes made out to be. We can change it. So I would say that, and just to finalize, to mention we here in Mexico, I'm part of an organization called Movement for Movimiento Izquierda Revolucionaria, Revolutionary Left Movement. Again, we're a small communist organization. If anybody wants to check us out or has any questions, they could look us up on social media. We'd be happy to help with whatever requests or aid we can assist you with. And again, just to thank you and for the work you guys are doing there. We'll be happy to share it around here and keep track of what you're doing and help you again in any way we can.
Thank you so much, Christopher, for carving out some time for this interview. It was insightful and detailed. I hope that it's gonna be helpful for our audience. They will enjoy this talking. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be able to help. Have a great day too.
We'll be in touch.